And it's like, dude, what? When were you going to tell me all of these things? When are you going to tell me I could do these things? Welcome back, beautiful people, and welcome to my channel. I'm going to be starting a segment called Books, Tea, and Tell. Obviously, it is exactly what it sounds like. I read a lot of books. Actually, how do I have time for that? I have no idea. Don't assume I get any sleep. But I love to read books. I love drinking tea, and I gotta tell y'all about these books that I'm reading, okay? So the book for today is Nora Roberts' The Awakening. Y'all go ahead and get your tea, and let's get started. And so it begins. So I am going to give you non-spoilers, and then, of course, I have to tell you how I feel about the book, and that will include spoilers. But I will let you all know when the spoilers are coming, okay? So, let's get started on my additional part to the summary. So the first thing that I want to point out is that they go to Ireland, as it says in the summary. She goes to Ireland with her best friend Marco, and they stay in this castle, and then they transition to a cottage. And so Breen is actually going to stay in this cottage for about 3 months, Marco for about 2 weeks. Yeah, she's going to spend the whole summer in Ireland. It's cute. And Marco, after he leaves after these 2 weeks, she's left to discover who she is without any obligations that have been put on her throughout her lifetime. It's like they're all gone because all of her obligations were financial, you know, like she works a job she can't stand. She listens to, So as the summary says, she stumbles into this other world by being led there. I'm not going to say how because I don't want to give spoilers, but she is led to this other world. And when she finds herself in this other world, she meets a few characters. Again, this is not spoilers because these are just the main characters of the book. Okay. Her grandmother, she meets her grandmother. Her grandmother's name is like, I'll put it somewhere on the screen, but I cannot pronounce it. But the book abbreviates the grandmother's name to a nickname, which is Marge, M-A-R-G. She, when asked like what she is, she's like, I'm Maiden Mother Crone. And that is a very powerful witch. And she also was the former, let me see if I can pronounce this right. Taoiseach? Yeah. Taoiseach. Anyway, it's Irish for the leader of the community. In this book, they are considered the protectors of the community, and they are elected, and this is given in the prologue, by jumping into a lake. A whole group of people jump into a lake, and then the person that the fates choose can see a sword in the bottom of the lake, and so they grab the sword, and that's how, you know, the sword chooses you and you choose the sword. So the grandmother was the Taoiseach. Am I saying that right? Taoiseach. Sorry, Taoiseach. Taoiseach. Oh, this is weird. I'm American. Can you tell? Anyway, the grandmother was chosen. She finds out that her father was also held this position of Taoiseach, and the boy Keegan, who is also now the current Taoiseach. That is also all revealed in the prologue. So I'm not giving you anything that isn't, like, that's not even the first chapter of the book. Okay, so don't feel like I'm giving you too much. Okay. She then learns through her grandmother and the surrounding people in the area of who her father was and like just who he was to this community, right? She also learns that she has an evil grandfather named Odrin, O-D-R-A-N, Odrin. If I'm not pronouncing that right, hit me down below. And he's after her. He was after her father. Oh, her father's name is Ian Kelly. Ian Kelly is his American name. I cannot say his Irish name. I'm not going to just keep butchering these names, okay? I'll just put it down below. But her father, Ian Kelly, is who her grandfather was after. And then Breen was born, and now her grandfather is after her. I don't want to get too much into that because it will spoil the book. But anyway, she does discover that she needs to protect this community from her grandfather. Okay, so this brings me to the second part. Now that she's learned she needs to help protect the village or this world from her grandfather, she starts to train. She starts to train with her grandmother, who is like a very powerful witch, and also, again, the former Taoiseach. I'm gonna get this right. Taoiseach. Anyway, she begins to train with her grandmother, Marge, and Keegan starts giving her like physical training. So like sword fighting and hand-to-hand combat. And they start this training throughout the summer, and they continue it until the end of the summer. Let's see, what else can I tell you guys without spoiling it? She has a huge decision to make at the end of the book, and it's not really a decision that you think is going to be the decision. That's all I'll say about that. But she has a huge decision to make at the end of the book, and the ending will probably surprise you. Yeah. So I'll give you all time to reorient yourselves if you want to keep watching and hear a lot of spoilers about my opinion. Then you keep watching, but I'll give y'all a second, okay? How I'm gonna rate this book is, what is my star rating out of 5? Would I reread it, and would I suggest it? Obviously, my star rating is just an overall understanding of how I feel about the book. Would I reread it? I often reread books that I find very interesting, like, oh, I can't find a new book to read, or I'm not really interested in reading it, or I just want to reread a book, kind of like a movie, like I just want something to occupy my time. I reread books. If I'm not willing to reread a book, it's pretty indicative of how I feel about the book. And would I suggest the book? Some books I don't reread just because it's a lot going on in the plot, but that doesn't mean I don't appreciate enough to suggest this to someone else. So my answers for those is, the star rating is definitely a 2, 2.5 at the most. How would I say this? The would I reread it category, I try to reread it so that I can give a very accurate review. And when I tell you I could not get past chapter 10, okay? Oh, I couldn't do it, guys. I really tried, and I could not get past chapter 10. Okay. And so for that, I really wouldn't suggest somebody read it. The only way I would suggest somebody read this book is if you're determined to read the whole series. So the second book in this series got pretty great reviews this past year in 2022. A lot of people love the book. They say it's great, yada, yada. So I was like, oh, well, if I'm going to read the second book, I have to read the first book, obviously. I might read the second book. So I would suggest, if you are determined like me to read the series, then yes, go ahead and read it. But outside of that, that's about all I can say. Okay. So if you are ready for the spoilers as to why I rated this book the way I rated it and won't reread it and may or may not suggest it, stay tuned because the spoilers are coming, okay? So let me get my sip of tea because, whoo child, okay. Again, if you see me looking down, it's just because I have notes and I want to make sure I don't ramble because there's a lot to rant about in this book. So the first spoil alert or critique I have for this book is that her relationship with Marco is very one-sided and kind of toxic in a way. So the reason why I feel that is because Marco is such a supportive friend, right? We find that multiple in like the first 3 chapters, you find him stopping whatever he's doing. Oh, Breen, you sound like you're stressed. Let me stop what I'm doing to come help you. What you need, girl? Like, what's up? I would like to point out that he is part of the LGBTQIA community. He identifies as gay, and that is, I feel, overly emphasized in the book and can come off a tad offensive to the community because it's just like drilled into the ground to the point where he even makes a statement like, I'm about to be the gay best friend that everybody, yeah, it's just like, okay. Anyway, but he is an amazing person. Like, aside from how she chose to depict his sexuality or his identity, I'll say, in the book, he is an amazing friend. He's an amazing support system. I love Marco as a person. He is great. The issue I have is not with Marco. I have an issue with Breen. She is very self-centered. Never does she say, hey guys, how was your day? They're always checking in on her. Never does she say, hey, is there anything I can do for you guys? They're always helping her. And so it's very, to me, one-sided because as the summary says, she comes into almost $4 million. And so this group of people, these three identified characters, Marco, Sally, and Derek, who are part of her family. When she comes into this money, never is it like, how can I financially relieve the burden for some of you guys? You are my family. I love you. You've loved on me all these years. What can I do to return the favor? If it's give you money or you know, you are a millionaire at this point, sis. Ooh, yeah. Never does she do that. And it's very sad, because if this is someone who you say you cannot live without, then it's like, at the very least, you guys share an apartment. Like, you can be like, hey, don't worry about rent from now on. I know you're struggling to pay rent like I am. Don't worry about it because I'm a millionaire. She doesn't even have that conversation. And so to me, it's like very selfish, because his first words to her, like after he finds out she's a millionaire, he's like, how are you going to make yourself happy? And yeah. She just doesn't reciprocate the level of commitment to the friendship as Marco does. That's how I will sum that up. That, like, he shows his level of commitment to her by the effort he makes to support her emotionally, and even physically. Like, when she needs a hug, he's there. But she doesn't reciprocate anything. Friendships are different. They're never 50-50. People, give and take in friendships, but Breen is always taking from Marco, and I think emotionally, and I think that's very toxic. All right, so the other issue I kind of have is the relationship she has with her mother is very, should I say convoluted, complicated. It's not very clear, because she has her own depiction of her mother and how she describes her mother, but Marco doesn't. I'll say this: her mother is rich. Her mother was not always rich. She built her own media empire, and now she's got like marble floors in the home and yada yada. Breen is poor, to say the least. And the mother does not support Breen financially, which is why coming upon $4 million that your mother is hiding from you is very devastating. Her mom is not using her money. Her mom, like I said, built her own empire and has no need for Breen's money. She just wanted Breen to be able to live a life that is not solely dependent on finances. And I get that, because a lot of parents do that. I could be filthy stinking rich, but you need to learn how to navigate life without being dependent upon your finances for your highs and your lows. So Breen complains like, oh, I had to work 2 jobs during college to get through college, and I have a degree that I didn't even want, that my mother convinced me to get, which is being a teacher. And then once she got the job, she realized she had to get her master's to maintain the job, and she has all these student loan debts. She doesn't have a car. And it's crazy, because as you go through these descriptions, a lot of it sounds like a normal, like, 20-year-old in America. Like, most people have to pay their way through college, sis, and have student loans. It's literally like the top 3 reasons why people have debt in America: student loans, health, and etc. But like, student loans is up there, sis. So you're not the only one. Reading the things that Breen is complaining about, it just makes her sound very spoiled. And again, I completely understand your mom being rich and seeing the life that you could have if your mother had just financially supported you just a little bit. But again, the people around you are not rich either. Marco's not rich. Sally's not rich. None of these people that are your friends are rich. The only person that you surround yourself that has money is your mother. And she has made it very clear, even in their argument, when Breen confronts her like, yo, you've had all this money and I've been poor and I've been struggling, yada, yada. The mom is like, yeah, but I did that on purpose because I wanted you to learn how to navigate the world, without being dependent upon finances, which is a normal answer from a parent. So yeah, Breen accuses her mom of consistently calling her inadequate or average. And again, when she confronts her mother about it, her mom she doesn't gaslight her. She doesn't say, oh, well, you're average, so I'm just identifying, what I see. She's just like, I never said that. She literally is just like, I never called you average. And Breen's response is, well, you implied it. Well, your kid is not going to be perfect at everything. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, you're an amazing ballerina, which is one of the things that Breen picks up or brings up, that her mom made her quit classes because they couldn't afford it. As a single mom, as a new single mom, even if I'm getting child support, that child support might not last forever. So I'm not going to sit here and waste it on ballet classes and piano classes when you are average. And that's not to say that she doesn't deserve happiness or deserve a hobby or extracurricular. It's just, as a single mom, your mentality changes to, I need to find a way to survive, because long term, I have this kid until they're 18 or until they move out my house. I can't afford to just be paying for things willy-nilly, you know. And in the story, Breen doesn't say when her mom finally becomes rich or when they start making money, when her mom starts making money. And so the mom is like, hey, I can't afford this. I can't afford that. And Breen's perspective is, well, my mom is just trying to keep me from great things. She always tries to keep me from great things. She won't let me be me. But even Marco was just kind of like, you let her make you beige. That's literally what he says. You let her make you beige. And also supports his statement by saying, hey, when I came out, my family rejected me, everybody rejected me, but your mother treated me with love and respect. And so he's like, I will never say anything bad about your mother, but I will say she is, I think he says like controlling, but then he finishes it off by saying, but you let her be controlling. So it's like she has this animosity towards her mother. But when you're coming into adulthood and separating yourself from your parents and your parents' control, to me, that's kind of just what happens. Like, you learn that your parents will want one thing, but to make yourself happy, you have to do another thing. And you can't blame your parents for voicing how and what they want. If they're condescending or very demeaning, yes, I get it. And I'm not going to take childhood trauma away from Breen, like whatever she experienced. But even when she meets Marge, which is her grandmother that's in this land of Talma, she's like, oh, when I met your mother, she was loving. She loves you. She loved my son, who is Ian Kelly. And I will never say anything ill about your mother. Do I think she raised you, the way I would like her to have raised you? No, but I won't speak ill about your mother. And so that just lets me know Breen's mom is probably not as trash as she's trying to depict she is in this book. And it's kind of like, it just makes Breen seem more selfish. Like, oh, I'm not going to take responsibility for the fact that I got a whole degree that I don't want. Even though I don't live with my mom didn't pay my way through school, and I don't see my mom on a regular basis, but I let her control which degree I want, and I hate my job for it. Like, make it make sense. Your mom, you had the ability to not have your mom control your life, and you let her. And it's more easy said than done. You have to put in a lot of boundaries, and a lot of therapy comes with it sometimes. But the point is, if you're unhappy, you can't just keep blaming people for your unhappiness. And this theme of blaming her mother for being this troll of a person, even though when we see her, speak to her mom doesn't act like a troll. She actually doesn't give her mom a chance to thoroughly explain herself. She just kind of comes in and throws words at her mom. And it's not in a disrespectful way, but she's upset, rightfully so, $4 million. But she's not, they don't have a productive conversation about it. Breen just gets words off her chest and she's like, I'm out. At the end of the book, she talks to her mom again. Pretty much same thing. So her mom doesn't really get an opportunity to thoroughly explain herself or her own perspectives. Through the book, like, her and her mom don't actually have a relationship. So how Breen's mom is as controlling as Breen says is very confusing. But like I said, through the theme of the book, she blames her mom for her inadequacy or her lack of confidence. And it's, again, confusing because Sally's very encouraging. Marco's very encouraging. And I get how devastating a disappointed parent is. But like, you can, at this point, like, you're 26, you have to choose who you're going to allow to impact your life. And she instead just blames her mom the entire book. All right. So another thing is, once she discovers this world of Talma, where she realized her father is from, and she has this leadership responsibility to help protect this world, she kind of takes everything at face value. It's kind of weird because if I am in this new world, I'm probably not, I'm going to ask some questions. Like, this is a whole world. I'm asking all the questions. I'm asking all the things. And she doesn't really ask too many questions. Yeah, she just kind of starts training and takes everybody's word for everything. And that's kind of it. You think there's going to be this huge awakening moment, and there is not one. There literally is not one. She has all these dreams in the first however many chapters of the book, and you think all of the dreams will be explained, and they're not. And so it's very confusing because you wonder then, why is the book called The Awakening? Because there is no awakening. It's just, oh, I'm discovering I have these powers, or supposedly have these powers. And that's the other thing. Nobody explains what powers she has. Nobody explains what powers the Taoiseach has. Like, Keegan's training her and trying to bring out power, but he doesn't say what power. He doesn't say what power he has. Like, sometimes she hits him and he's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm pretty powerful. I can take a hit. Powerful how? Like, she doesn't ask any questions, and it's kind of irritating because you want to know things, right? This is a whole new world. So many things are happening. No questions are being asked. She also, when she learns that her grandfather is this evil person that is, you know, she has to protect the community from, she don't ask no questions. The grandma shows her like this vision in the fire, and this scene of, because I don't want to give that away, but there's this scene of things that happen where she's under her grandfather's care at a time, which is kind of giving some away, but I'm not going to keep elaborating on that. But she has an encounter with the grandfather, and after that scene happens in the fire that the grandma reveals, people don't tell her about the grandfather. She has to just stumble upon something, and they're like, oh yeah, he can do that. And it's like, dude, what? When were you going to tell me all of these things? When are you going to tell me I could do these things? Like, it's so infuriating. Like, sis, okay, your grandmother's a witch and she's powerful and she's teaching you different spells, and Keegan's teaching you hand-to-hand combat. But then that brings me to my other irritation. And nobody has the conversation of, hey, how are we going to defeat Odrin? He's had to be defeated by the grandmother, by her father, and then by her father again. And nobody, when I say nobody, I mean nobody goes into great detail about how to defeat him, or how to get rid of him, or to restrict his power. Like, the grandfather is after her. Like I said before, I think I mentioned this before, but the grandfather was after Ian Kelly, which is her father. And then he's after her. And because both his son, or Odrin's son, Ian Kelly, and his granddaughter, Breen Kelly, have power. Nobody explains thoroughly. Like, they give kind of like a half-a explanation, but nobody thoroughly explains why he needs their power. If he's so powerful, and I'm not gonna give away too much, but if he's so powerful, why does he need her power? Supposedly, he wants her power because she's part human, and it'll allow him to, you know, walk through... My camera is not centered. Walk through different worlds, one of them being the human world. But again, there are other characters in the book that walk into the human world without being human. So why is it? Why is it he needs her power? Like, none of it is thoroughly explained, and it's kind of infuriating because he's kind of like a hush-hush character. You just get pieces of who he is, instead of, like, he doesn't even get a chance to explain who he is or what he wants and his side of the story, right? And there's one dream she has where she's like drawn to the darkness, and that is not explained. Like, does the grandfather side actually make sense? And everybody's just, yeah. She also has dreams that I think I mentioned earlier that aren't always interpreted or explained. Sometimes they are. She'll be like, oh, I remember that. That was in a dream. You were in my dream. But the dream itself is not explained. Another observation is Breen seems to have some abilities where she can sense people or the thoughts of animals, but that's not explained either. Or the silver hair guy that she sees, and he's like, Breen, it's time for you to come home. He says that to her in her head, but nobody explains how he can have a conversation with her in her head. That's never talked about again, ever, in the book. Okay, so now you have my interpretation of the book. Like I said, I tried to reread it. I DNF'd it because it was just really painful. The first 10 or 15 chapters are the Breen and Marco show, where he's just overly supportive and loving and caring, and she's just taking it all in without reciprocating it. And it just gets kind of boring and redundant. And you have to really get past all that to get to this other world. She does start a blog and she is immediately successful about it. I'm not saying that's not realistic, because some people are. Whatever. Do you, girl. But yeah, it just was a no for me. The book was really a no. And I'm really sad because so many people say that they love this book. But it was a no. Okay. So comment down below what you thought of this book, if you read it, or if you still plan on reading it. Read the book, okay? Everybody has their own interpretations of books, and because everybody has their own perspectives, right? This is coming from my perspective of life, and y'all just let me know what you think of this book. Let me know what books you guys think I should read next. I have 2 books that I just bought. One is, hold on, let me go get it. Okay, so I have 2 books that I'm probably going to read next. One of them is Sarah J. Maas's House of Earth and Blood, Crescent City. This one, pretty sure you guys have seen this before if you're in the book community and you read sci-fi, or I think that's considered sci-fi. And Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Yes. Thank you guys again for joining me on Book Tea and Tell, and I will see you guys next time.